It's cliché to say at this point that you should play a game at 2 a.m. in the morning simply because it would be scarier or thrilling. Me, on the other hand, I enjoy this time of the night because of the silence and lack of distractions that allow me to immerse myself in a game. Not necessarily horror games, I must say, but I have to agree that this genre makes the best candidate for this specific time, as you feel the dread, desperation and immersion it can provide. I bring 7 games today. Not all of them are horror themed necessarily, but will be worthy of trying at least once to get a surprise or two for your enjoyment. Roll the intro. This War of Mine. The first entry of this list could be considered, depending on some people's perspective, realistic horror. This War of Mine is, as the title says, a war game, but from the perspective of citizens rather than the soldiers. And instead of simply being a survival horror game, you have to make the most out of your choices, even if this could bring terrible consequences. The results are realistic and shows you not only the horrors of war and how these affect you, but others as well. You need to build your base and make sure it's safe to survive the ongoing conflict. That means you have to gather supplies, materials, and face enemies in the most extreme situations to see another day. You can start every campaign with 1 or more characters, and this conclude with day cycles. At night, you can choose to rest or explore. Both of them can bring great results or terrible consequences for you. You may end up exploring a place that's full of supplies that will help you and the people with you, but the drawback is that it's a house with an elderly couple who can barely defend themselves. The game doesn't force you to steal from them. It's your choice to do it or not. And if you do, and come back to the house, you may find the couple hugging in their bed, not moving, showing you how they spent their last moments together because you chose to take everything from them. And this decision, for example, isn't just rewarding, as it could take a mental toll on your character. You'll need to take care of their physical and mental health. Make sure you survive the winter, cheer other members up so they don't consider self-deletion, and if you choose to explore, be cautious and well-equipped because this game has permadeath mechanics. If one of your characters dies, they are dead for good, and you have to manage it on your own, both physically and mentally speaking. Oh, and have I mentioned that you can have campaigns taking care of children as well? Well, you do. This will also have a moral impact on your decisions as well. Are you willing to do what it takes to make sure that child survives? Even if it means facing other innocent people or stealing from a hospital. There is no script in this adventure. It's your choice and yours alone. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. I've talked about this game a lot, but there's a good reason for that. This underappreciated gem puts you in the shoes of Senua, set in a dark fantasy world inspired by Norse mythology and Celtic culture. She suffers from psychosis and hears voices all the time, but she does not know that this is a sickness, but a curse instead. Being ostracized and abused her entire life and labeled as a witch, Senua knew nothing but suffering her entire life. and she's on a quest to rescue the soul of her beloved from the grasps of the Viking goddess of death, Hela. To do that, Senua has to face the path of Helheim and conquer the darkness that will infect Senua more and more as time passes by. Since this is set in the Viking and Celtic culture, the demons she sees resemble the myths she heard of, and the creatures she has to face resemble demons, giants, or gods. What's interesting of this game is that the voices she hears are not just part of the plot, but a mechanic as well. This will tell you when enemies are nearby, where the solution of a puzzle might be, or in the worst possible scenario, even fool you. As you progress through the game, you will encounter puzzles that are connected to Senua's story and how she got here to begin with, while being haunted by ghosts of her past traumas, only to be motivated to move forward by the memory of her beloved. Also, there's an interesting mechanic on this game. Every time Senua dies, darkness takes a part of her body. If the darkness takes over her head, the journey is over and your game progress gets permanently deleted. Lastly, I'd like to say that there's a section at the end of the game which is, in my opinion, the most frightening environment of any game ever created, in which you can barely see anything around you, and you can only use sound as your tool for navigation. But don't let that fool you, because some of these sounds could be deceiving as well, and you may end up discovering something you do not want to see. Darkwood. I discovered this game very recently, to be honest, but it only took 30 minutes of gameplay in my stream to be fully invested in it. This semi-open world puts you in the shoes of a stranger whose story is very vague, and you need to survive in this world where the forest has taken over. Roads, cottages, and even animals and humans. Every once in a while, you'll encounter other survivors whose morality might be as vague as your own story. Apart from presenting you with a survival horror experience, the game also has a day and night system in which you need to traverse the land to discover a way out. I can't tell you for certain if going out at night could be a better or worse option. What I can say though is this: let's assume it's safer to go out at night. Would you do it? A lot of the times, you'll barely see the creatures ahead of you, and you will need to trade with other characters as you progress throughout the story. They may be friendly and compassionate with you, but can you know for certain? Especially when they don't even resemble anything you have ever seen before. But that's not everything. You'll also have to take difficult decisions in this game too. Will you kill or spare the person or animal in front of you? What are the benefits or consequences of doing so? What happens if you don't? Apart from having an excellent atmosphere, this game plays with your head more than what you play with the overall world. If you're ready to embark into this adventure, make sure you have the right mindset and leave behind your normal sense of morality. Trust me, it will be better for you in the long term. Hey, very unorthodox from my end to do this, but I realized while editing this video that if I didn't do this disclaimer, it would be very cruel from my part. I know that it may sound hypocritical after mentioning the other games before with very dark topics, but I realized that the next games could not just scare you, but also hurt your sensitivity, as they have content that would truly harm people with heart conditions, epilepsies, or could easily be disturbed by +18 content. They include sexual abuse, truly horrifying jump scares and art direction that would do a lot of harm if not handled properly. I know this is the month of terror, and trust me when I tell you that I'm not exaggerating. But if I did not take into consideration your well-being, I would not be entertaining. I would be a dick. If you still want to know more about these games, continue watching the video, and again, thank you for your support. Let's continue with the rest of the entries. Saturnalia. The advantage of indie studios developing games is that they can get away with ideas that would not be approved by greedy producers. That's why I applaud the work of this Italian studio when they released Saturnalia, a survival horror game where you don't play as just one character but many. This game features scenes of implied physical violence, domestic abuse, and limited gory imagery, screams, human and animal corpses, blood trails, you name it. Throughout the game, character dialogue and clues make references to self-deletion, substance abuse, sexual violence, racism, homophobia, sexism, and abortion that some people may find distressing or disturbing. If that wasn't enough, the first truly horrifying moment of this game happens right after the first night, where the first character, Anita, goes to the church to find her beloved and baby's father. Upon entering, you see that the church is empty, and as the camera changes, you are suddenly visited by a shadowy figure emerging from the fog that chases you very slowly. All you can do is run and meet up with your friend at the mines. Right after that, the second character, Paul, who is a photojournalist, also has a story to discover in this town, and the clues lead him to the mines. Here, you have to be very cautious as the mines are dark and it's not easy to navigate them, while also avoiding that terrifying presence that could be chasing you or not. The game also features a puzzle mechanic where you can tie the stories together and see how they are connected to the ritual that takes place in the city. But to uncover the story, you need to traverse the different locations of this game. Are you willing to take up the challenge? Fear and Hunger. If there's one type of video game I was not expecting horror to be applied flawlessly, was RPG, and Fear and Hunger delivers with no disappointment. In this survival horror and fantasy game, you traverse the cave that resides the god of the depths, an entity whose body is the cave. This means that every time you start your adventure, the layout of this game changes, conditioning you to have a new experience each time. But that's not all. Contrary to other RPGs, you don't have a leveling system here. You don't get experience from killing the enemies, just the chance to not face them again in the future, and the enemies will do serious harm to you. Inspired by Lovecraftian horror, you need to make difficult choices as you play. When facing an enemy, rather than attacking the enemy as a whole, you have to choose which part of the enemy to attack. It could be the head, the arms, the torso, and, in some cases, genitalia. I know that for a lot of people this might be weird, but keep in mind that we're talking about erotophobia here, a fear to genitals and sex. And since most of these creatures are primal and horrifying, they will not hesitate to abuse you. And since we're talking about phobias, your character can have a phobia like the one I mentioned before. This means that if they encounter anything related to their phobia, the game becomes more difficult and will affect the party. Enemies can not just kill you, but poison you, break your bones, and even dismember you. This will affect the gameplay. If you lose a leg, you'll walk slower than usual. Lose both legs, you have to drag your body throughout the dungeon. Lose an arm, and you can no longer hold a shield. Lose both arms and, well, good luck. And no, this can't be reversed. I think that the part where this game succeeds the most is the sound design as well. Visuals may be a take or leave, but you can also get messages of things happening around you. Sometimes your character might be hungry, or their mind state could be so low they might consider self-deletion and choose not to continue to be in your party. But sometimes the game may even show messages of a terrifying presence entering the room or something getting closer. The combination of eerie silence, ominous sounds, and even very loud noises when minutes ago everything was dead silent will put you on your toes more times than you can count. Walk. This game is really short and it's hard to recommend it as a full experience. However, the art direction this took was done so incredibly well that I couldn't simply not include it in this list. Inspired by the polygon aesthetic of PS1 games, Walk puts you in the shoes of a schoolgirl going back home while being chased by a terrifying presence. Not sure if it's a ghost, a monster, or ethereal entity. But every time this thing is close, messages appear in your screen and you have to run and hide from it. Remember, you are just a little girl escaping from this thing. No power, no weapons, no speed, nothing. You are defenseless and you can only hope to reach to your destination. But make no mistake here, just because you hide, it doesn't mean you're safe. The creature can still find you, so all you can do is follow the instructions that appear on the screen and hope you made the right decision. Was it a good idea to hide, or should I run instead? All I can say is that you cannot hesitate, because rather than being incomplete, the game uses technical limitations as a mechanic, and you need to think fast if you want to succeed. Aka Manto. This game has very unsettling jump scares. You have been warned. Based on the Japanese myth of Aka Manto, also known as Aoi Manto in popular folklore, who happens to be a masked spirit who wears a red cloak and who appears to people using toilets in public or school bathrooms, and released by Chile's Art in 2019. This game follows the story of a young student who is trapped in a school by bullies and is forced to navigate their way through the halls of the school, collect items, solve puzzles, and escape the creature. This game is also inspired by polygonal PS1 graphics, and the environments and sound design are an experience to behold. You can't kill the ghost, you can't exit the level, and even if you pause, the game continues. This is what I consider the perfect combination of simple plot with outstanding execution. The only way to improve the experience such as this one is by releasing this game in VR, as it would bring the immersion to a whole new level. What else can I say? The game is very simple in its plot and only made for the brave to be played. You want to know why? Well, I'm warning you in advance now. You are going to be jump scared. But still, let me leave some gameplay for you to enjoy.